Newton was born according to Julian calendar in use in England at the time of Christmas, day 25th December 1642, NS 4th January 1643, an hour or two after midnight at Woolsthorpe Manor in Woolsthorpe by Closterworth, a helmet in the country of Lincolnshire. His father, also named Isaac Newton, had died 3 months before birth. Newton was a small child. His mother, a croft and reported said that he could fit inside a quart mug. When Newton was 3, his mother remarried and went to live with her new husband and River Smith, leaving her son in the career of metal grandfather and grandmother towards his mother for marrying him as a revealed by this entry a list of sins committed up of the age of 19, treating my father and mother seemed to burn them and house over them. Newton's mother had 3 children, Mary, Benjamin and Helen, from her second marriage. From the age of about 12 until he was 17, and Newton was educated at the King's School in Grantham, which tough Latin and accent, Gothic and probably impact a significant foundation of mathematics. He was removed from school and returned of Woolsthorpe by Closersworthy, and by October 1659 his mother wandered of the second time attempted to the make a informer an occupation. He hated Henry Stokes master at the age of King's School his mother to send him back to school, motivated partly by a desire for revenge. Against a school herd, Belly he became the top ranked student, himself mainly by building students of models and windmills. In June 1661, Newton was admitted to Trinity College at the University of Cambridge. His uncle, Reverend William S. Goff, who had studied at Cambridge, recommended to in the University at Cambridge. Newton started as a subsor playing whereby performing of the valiant duties until he was awarded to scholarship in 1664, which covered university courses for 4 more years until the completion of his MA. At the age of Cambridge, teachings were based on those of Astrid Worm. Newton read along with then more born philosophers including Descartes and astronomers such as a Galileo Galilei and Tom Street. He set down in notebook a series of questions about mechanical philosophy as she found it 1665 discovered the generalized Bominal theorem and began to develop a mathematical theory that later became calculus. Soon after Newton obtained being BA degree academic August 1665 the university temporarily closed as a precaution against the great puggle of the Cambridge student. Newton's private studies at his home Glostrop over the next 2 years saw development on his theories on clans and optics and the law of gravitation. In April 1667, Newton returned the University Cambridge and in October he was elected as the Fellow of Trinity. Fellows were required to be ordinated and all of this was not enforced in the Stratian years and an extraction community to Church of England was sufficient. However, by 1675 the issue could not be avoided by then unconventional views stood in the way. Nevertheless, Newton managed to avoid it by means of special permission for Charles. His academic work impressed the Professor Isaac Baron, who was ambitious, developed his own religions and administrative potential. He became master of Trinity College. 2 years later, in 1669, Newton succeeded him only 1 year after receiving his MA. Newton was elected a Fellow of the Royal City FRS in 1672. Newton's work has been said to dignation advance every branch of mathematics. Then studied his work on the subject usually refined to as frictions and claricants see in a manuscript in October 1606 is now published a Mango Newton's mathematical papers. His work The Unleashed Per Equations Neuramo theorems, in fact, and sent by Isaac Barrow to John Collins in June 1669, was identified by Barrow and in a letter sent to Collins that August as the work of an extraordinary genius, and in these things Newton later became involved a dispute with over probity in the development of colors. Most modern historians believe that Newton and developed qualities independently, all of with very different mathematical notions and nation and a different method. Nowadays recognize such more convenient notions adopted by Europe mathematics and after 1820 or so also by British mathematics. His work extremely uses calculates in geometry from based on a limiting values of ratios, and in a principal iterancy of Newton give distribution of this under the name of the method of first last ratios, and explained why he put these extrapolations in this, from remarking also that are by same thing is performed as a method of indivisible. Because of this the principle has been called a book density with the theory of application of the calculus in modern times, and in Newton's time nearly all of it as a calculus is use of methods involving one or more orders of the intimacy small is present in these papers of motion during 2 decades preceding 1684. Newton had been reluctant to publish his calculus because he feared controversies and criticisms. He was closer to Swim's mathematician Nucleus Fato on Euler in 1691 started to write a new version of Newton's principle and corresponded with in 1963 the relationship between a Newton dynamic, and the book was never completed. Starting in 1699, other members of the Royal Society acknowledged the dispute that broken out in full force in 1711 when the Royal Society in a study that it was Newton who was a true discovered and labor. It was later found of the Newton wrote the studies, concluding remarks on those began better convenience, which married the lives of both Newton and the latter's death in 1971. Newton is generally credited with the generalized binomial theorem, valid for any exponent. He discovered Newton's identities. Newton's method classified curved plane curves of degree 3 into variables, made sustainable compositions of the theory, and finite differences, and was first to use frictional indicator to employ coordinated geometry to drive solutions of he aggremated particle sums of by a picture, and he was first to use power series with confident and to driven power series. Newton's work on independent series was inspired by Simon Stevis Demicles when Newton received in MA and became a Fellow of College of the Holy and Undivided Trinity. In 1667, he made the commitment that I will either set theology as a subject of the my studies and will take an orders when the time fixable this statutes 7 years awaits, or I will resign from the college. Up until this point he had not of much about religion, and that twice signed his agreement to the 39 articles, the basis of Church of England reckoned, and he was appointed of professor of mathematics in 1669 on Barrow's recommendation. During that time, any fellow of a college at Cambridge or Oxford was required to any holy orders and become an ordinated agate priest. However, the terms of the professorship required that the older not be active in the church, and so as more time of science. Newton argued that this should attempt him for the ordination requirement, and Charles was permission was needed accepted this agreement. Thus a conflict between Newton's religious views and Anglican orthodoxy was originated, and then 1666 Newton observed the spectrum of colors extending a prism in position of minimum deviation in oblong even when the light ray entering the color, which is to say prism refracts different quality by different angles. This lead him to include that color is a property instead to light a point which had to until the been a matter of debate from 1670 to 1672. Newton lectured on optics. During this period, he investigated the reflection of light determination that the multicolored image produced by a prism, which he named spectrum, could be recomposed into white light by lens or scanned prism. Modern scholarship has revealed that Newton's analysis and Whiteland's hope debut to scopular acclaim. He showed that color light does not change its property by spreading out a colored beam and shading it on various objects, and the regardless of whether reflected, scratched, or transmitted, the light remains the same color. Thus, he observed that color is the result of object and interacting already colored light render, then objects generating the color themselves. This known as Newton's theory of color.